What does British philanthropy contribute to the European Union and to Europe more generally? And what does British philanthropy gain from being part of the European Union? We're at the European Foundation Centre conference here in Amsterdam just a few weeks before the UK referendum on its membership of the European Union, and we asked participants from across the world of European philanthropy for their views on these questions. Here's what we heard. What do you think British philanthropy brings to the table of European philanthropy?
Well, I mean, I should probably say that I work for the Association of Charitable Foundations in the UK, which is an umbrella organisation that provides support to foundations and trusts in the UK. And we've been around for around 25 years, but the foundations that we support have been around, some of them, for hundreds of years. So I think one of the key things that British foundations bring to the table is a long-standing history of working with the voluntary sector and really trying to effect change. So I believe that there is a lot of good practice and know-hows that can be shared with other European members. But I would say there is also some of the work that foundations do in terms of where the money are actually going to Europe as well.
Links between Dutch philanthropy and UK philanthropy that are benefiting from the European connections.
Yes, well, when I let's say, joined the Adessium Foundation, the chair of the foundation, the board of the foundation, and I went around, and we included the UK because, as I said, there's a rich tradition in UK philanthropy. There's also, I think, a quite efficient network of support to the sector.
If British philanthropy is making such a big contribution in Europe, would you fear that that would be lost if Britain were to vote to leave the European Union?
I don't think that much of that will be lost when Britain would leave the European Union, but I think that it would be a pity for the exchange of contacts we have now within the European Research Network on Philanthropy between British researchers and researchers that are working in other countries in Europe. Europe provides a platform in which we can learn from each other, and actually Britain is, for many European countries, considered as a leading country in research on philanthropy, but also on fundraising. And so if Britain would leave the European Union, I think it would be a loss for Europe.
Professor Schutt from VU University in Amsterdam, we're here at the European Foundation Centre conference, and it's on the eve of the referendum on whether the UK leaves the European Union. So we're asking for perceptions from Europe about what British philanthropy brings to the table and what might be lost if it leaves that table. What are your thoughts?
If you only have the two large countries, Germany and France, then you need a third party, and that's the UK. They are smart, they are nice, they are friendly, and that's important to keep the European Union alive.
What about in terms of philanthropy? Is the UK nice, smart and friendly in philanthropy terms?
Yeah, also, if you look worldwide, I think that we can learn a lot about the research of the United States, but also if you look at the tradition in the UK about the charity society, for instance, the webs, and all the history of traditional philanthropy in the UK, there is a lot of comparison with what's going on also in the past in the Netherlands and France and Germany.
I was wondering, from the perspective of French philanthropy, how relevant and important is British philanthropy to you?
I think we would appreciate very much in France if British philanthropists and institutions would communicate more about what they do. We would be very interested in having more relationships and gaining from each other's knowledge and best practices. So I would suggest maybe to have more workshops and university exchanges together.
And do you think that would be harder if Britain left the EU, or will France and Britain have a relationship anyway?
I think they would still have a relationship, but it would be, of course, more difficult. So let's stay in.
British philanthropy and Britain is at a crossroads, and I just want to know what you think British philanthropy brings to the table of European philanthropy.
I think it brings us several things. So one, it brings a long history of being involved in it brings the Anglo-Saxon approach. If British philanthropy were to pull back, if civil society at the British level were not involved as well, it would be a different Europe.
So here with Brad Smith, the president of the Foundation Centre in New York. He's with us at the European Foundation Centre in Amsterdam, where we're in the run-up to the UK referendum on whether the UK will remain in or leave the European Union. And we're gathering perspectives, including from our friends in North America. Now, Donald Trump says that he's really not bothered whether the UK leaves the European Union. In fact, it might be a good thing. And your current president, Barack Obama, says that it's essential that Britain remains. Where do you stand in the context of philanthropy and British philanthropy and what it contributes to Europe?
Okay, that's a multiple-part question. I'll do my best. First of all, I cannot speak officially for either Donald Trump or Barack Obama. Actually, I think it would be terrible if Britain left the European Union. British philanthropy is sort of an outlier in European philanthropy for two reasons. One is, oddly enough, because the language is English. The second thing is that Anglophone philanthropy tends to be grant-making philanthropy, and the majority of foundations in Europe don't make grants; they actually operate programs. So I think in another way that kind of makes British philanthropy an outlier. But at the same time, there's a movement within Europe to try to convince more foundations to make grants,
which potentially means a strong and important role for British philanthropy within Europe.
Yeah,
do you think that could be lost in some way? Or
I think it could be lost actually,
anyway?
because I think it's a difficult leap for operating foundations to make grants, because when you think about what making a grant is, that you have to entrust someone else with your mission. And most foundations don't want to give up that control, or what they perceive being loss of control.
You've just been in the session Democracy in Europe. We're talking about changes of systems, not simply more participation. Thinking about it in the context of the British referendum on whether to remain in or leave the European Union. What do you think British philanthropy contributes to Europe?
I've been trying to observe what is going on, but sort of what is the British thing here is just precisely the problem of the Brexit discussion, I think.
So it's a symptom of the problem, even the framing of the question?
Yeah, I think the Brexit question as such is completely wrong framed. Why? Because you stay or you go or you leave will not answer the question of which Europe. But we all know that this Europe or the EU cannot stay as it is.